Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Game 3 of this weighted best-of-5 series between Gamers 2 and Rest and Pepperonis. This is the grand final of the first installment of the Solomid Invitationals 2014. I'm Malphus X, and I'm being joined here by Spuddington to call all the action for you here. Rest and Pepperonis lead this series 2-1.
Yeah, they do. That Nidalee Soraka composition, though, I suspect we're going to see one or other of those picks being banned out this game. Nidalee is just way too strong. Just way too strong to deal with if she is allowed farm. So you need like a super specific counter. Some teams practice Yasuo as like an explicit counter to Nidalee mid. And that's the only time they ever run Yasuo. And it's still worthwhile because Nidalee is so difficult to deal with if she gets her farm up. So I'm expecting to see that to be the final ban. I'm spectating from stream though, so I'm a little bit behind. Has it happened?
Not yet. We haven't seen the last ban here. Irelia Jackson Riven getting banned out by the side of Rest and Pepperoni, so they're taking away the Riven we saw from JWoww in Game 1 of the series. Lulu, which has been banned against Alex Ich every game. Kassadin getting banned away as well. And Soraka going to be the final ban. So Nidalee coming out one more time. I have to think that Gamers 2 are betting on Rest and Pepperonis to either pick up the Kha'Zix or the Lee Sin, and they do. It's Lee Sin first pick here from the side of Rest and Pepperonis.
Well, Nidalee, that heal comp, you can't recreate it without both of Soraka and Nidalee. Nidalee is still very, very strong in her own right, though, so that's not a bad thing to get your hands on there in return for Lee Sin there. So, I mean, Ko's been playing okay this series, but he hasn't been playing phenomenally.
Now that you mentioned the Yasuo and the Nidalee counter pick, I'm starting to feel like that's more and more likely to be the pickup, especially since they first picked, the Lee Sin jungle, who has the knockup in his ultimate if he wants to be able to use it. But Yasuo, he has a lot of good matchups. He has a couple bad ones as well, though. So we'll see if they decide to pick it blind just to force Ocelot away from the Nidalee onto something else. So far, they're showing us an early LeBlanc. We'll see if that's going to get locked in. But the bottom lane is going to be the first set of picks here from Gamers 2 as they pick up the Lucian Thresh.
Super strong all-around lane. There really isn't much else to say about it. Lucian Thresh is always good. There are no terrible matchups for it. There are some matchups which aren't, super optimal. They're not like as good as you could possibly get as matchups, but there is no situation where you can look at a Lucian Thresh lane and think they're never going to win that lane. That's not possible. They just will. Like, they can anyway.
All right, so the LeBlanc does get locked in for Nuke Duck's mid lane, and the Graves is going to be the lock-in for Freeze's AD carry here as well. So using the Graves into Lucian, a lot of people big fans of this matchup. Graves just generally trades harder than Lucian in the early levels and can use that to get some good lane control. We'll see what the support pickup is going to be to match up against the Thresh, but right now we're waiting for Gamers 2 to pick up their next set of picks.
Graves, finally seeing it. He was going through kind of a phase of coming back into the meta. People hadn't played him this tournament very much, but we've been seeing more and more of him specifically as a counter to Lucian, and we are obviously going to be seeing that now. Freeze's Graves, I haven't seen too much of. Obviously, he was in NIP, and they were, haven't seen them play too recently, or at least I haven't casted them playing too recently since they were very caught up in the Riot stuff. So, going to be fun to see how good he is on that particular champion. And come to think of it, this tournament, Freeze has basically played Lucian and Twitch?
A lot of Lucian and a lot of Twitch.
Caitlyn as well.
And
that's
Caitlyn in the last game. Yep.
So, nice to see him branching out a little bit there. So, what are the next two picks then?
It's, Kha'Zix is going to get locked in for Morden's jungle, and Ocelot picks up the Nidalee anyway. So even though he used LeBlanc against Nidalee in the last game, he feels confident that he can beat this matchup from the other side. And the LeBlanc did dominate Nidalee throughout the entirety of the laning phase. Let's not split hairs about that. Nuke Duck had a lot of trouble in the early game, and it didn't end up mattering. Because at the end of the game, the javelins were landing, he was getting the damage down, and he was turning around all those team fights, and that combined with the heals was just too much to deal with. So they ban out the Soraka, they pick away the Nidalee, despite the fact that you can make the argument that Rest and Pepperonis just weren't interested, as they didn't pick it up for themselves when they had the opportunity. And, if he locks us in, the LeBlanc may have been a bait, and indeed it was. Alex Ich is going to handle the LeBlanc in the top lane, and Nuke Duck takes the Yasuo anyway.
Oh, that's a fun play. Now, Nuke Duck's Yasuo, scary stuff. That will dominate the lane. I mean, LeBlanc can already beat a Nidalee in lane, but Yasuo can really, really beat that lane hard. And it's one of the few lanes where Yasuo doesn't have to worry too much about jungle pressure, because Nidalee, until she's hit level 6, and even after then she's not great at this, she just doesn't do anything in a gank situation. She can throw a spear, except usually there's minions in between you. So it's basically down to the jungler to get that kill solo, and that's generally kind of difficult given how mobile Yasuo can be. So he's free to get farmed up, and then he's free to start roaming, and if there's one character that can really, really snowball very, very hard, it is Yasuo.
See, this isn't working out. Also, Yasuo in the late game can throw up the wind walls and shut out the Nidalee javelins as well. There's a lot of good things that can happen for Yasuo in this matchup. And we're just waiting to see what the solo laner is going to be for JWoww. He grabs up the Jace. So JWoww, Jace in the top lane. Ocelot's got the Nidalee into Yasuo matchup. Jace versus LeBlanc. Not a matchup we see too often. Spuddington, care to share a little, shed a little light on that?
I would love to, but unfortunately, I haven't seen Jace played in quite a long time. Sometimes we do see it as a counter to Jax, since he has the ranged harass and he also has the disengage that can avoid the counter strike. But I don't think I wouldn't understand why you would play that into a LeBlanc pick. It doesn't seem like it would make an awful lot of sense. LeBlanc feeds on squishies. Squishy characters just get bursted down by her, and she sets up ganks as well on characters that don't have escapes in long lanes. That seems like you're marking yourself for death there on the Jace there. Obviously, it will work composition-wise, gives them some mobility with the acceleration gate, gives them extra poke with the shock blast acceleration gate combo, but the lane there is a really, really dodgy matchup.
We'll see how this ends up working out. It seems a bit risky, but JWoww is he knew what he was picking this into, and he knows what he's going to have going into this one. Again, we're seeing another composition where there's no dedicated hyper tank to run the front lines. It's just going to be Lee Sin, who gets pretty tanky, Leona, who gets pretty tanky as well, and then Thresh and Kha'Zix, hoping to use his ultimate at just the right time to tank up a lot of that damage. But we're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll see how this game works out. If Rest and Pepperonis take this down, that's it. They win the tournament. Gamers 2 fighting to keep themselves alive here in this grand finals. Big shout outs to LaunchTech and ProBuilds.net for helping make this tournament possible. And we'll be back in just a moment, guys. Don't go anywhere. Don't move. Don't leave. Don't do anything.
Don't touch that mouse.
Stay. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Solomid Invitationals 2014. I'm Alpha X, being joined by Spuddington as we head into game number 3 of this weighted best of 5 in the grand finals. Our first tournament here brought to you in part by Logitech and ProBuilds.net. In the blue, we have Rest and Pepperonis, who lead the series 2-1. In the red, it's Gamers 2, who are fighting for their tournament life. A win here will put the winner's prize purse in the pockets of Rest and Pepperonis. And a loss for Rest and Pepperonis will extend the game to the 4th game of the series, although technically 5 if we're counting by the scoreboard. But so, last game, we saw a disgusting Nidalee Soraka heal composition. Worked out really nicely for Rest and Pepperonis. The Soraka gets banned out, and Gamers 2 grab up the Nidalee again. And so far, Nidalee has been the weather vane for this series, Buddington.
Yep, Nidalee wins. That is literally how it has been going. I would say this game, though, it's possibly going to be a little bit less influential. The poke is very, very strong from Gamers 2, but there's a lot of hard engage this time against it. They've got Leona, they've got a Yasuo with the Lee Sin to set him up, so there may be more options to stop Nidalee's poke from happening. Obviously, if they fall too far behind, though, you do get in that situation where the poke comp can fight you even if you manage to get that engage, and that gets ugly fast if it happens. So, I've got to say, and you and I were talking about this in the break, Malthus, we're kind of expecting the 2 versus 1 into the 4 versus 0 swap up here, because we've got Jace, and we in Champions League, you and I were very confused because we didn't really understand why we were going to be seeing a LeBlanc 1 versus 1 against a Jace, but obviously we're not. We're probably just going to be seeing him using that hypercharge on his W to push down towers very, very quickly, very, very early on into the game, which would work very well and allow him to get a decent bit of farm as well.
We'll see how it ends up working out. Right now, they're angling for it. This is the basic setup: is you late invade the enemy blue buff, take away everything on that side of the jungler with your top lane and your jungler, while your AD carry and support slow push the wave into the tower, and then as soon as you have a cannon minion show up, you just crash the tower with all 4 members and try to take it down as quickly as possible. But the fact that there are 3 members from the side of Rest and Pepperonis appear in this blue buff, they might not have as easy a time taking this away as they might like. Jace is pretty good level 1. He has 2 abilities he can use, both the range form and the melee form. I'm going to click on him real quick and see what those are. He took his Q, so he's going to have Shock Blast, he's going to have 2 Disguise. Let's see if he's scaled anything up yet. Yeah, he already has the Death Sentence as well, so they're going to have a decent amount of CC. They're coming in right after the buff gets engaged upon. We'll see if they're able to make anything happen. Nuke Duck going to run away from this one. Death Sentence not going to land. Ko just going to flash away. He realizes he's caught out, and they're going to end up giving away this blue buff and all of the map positioning here in the early game.
So, here goes the 4 versus 0. JWoww and Morden, they're going to move down to the Wolf Camp. They'll take that. Mithy may... damn it, I fell for it eventually. Nuke Duck may eventually try and be an annoying presence for them, may try and steal it, but not going to do that. We'll just walk past some wards and look to go and join up with his own 4 versus 0 push. They will most likely be running in just a few seconds, so... looking like we're going to be seeing an equal trade of towers as well in the long run when we see them actually move down to push the towers.
And an interesting decision here by Rest and Pepperonis. They're not using the Yasuo 1v1 against the Nidalee. They're just sending Alex Ich to deal with Ocelot's Nidalee in the mid lane. So a matchup that people were excited to hope to see, but never really looked like we were going to get the opportunity, is Alex Ich and Ocelot facing one another in the mid lane again, a la LCS a couple seasons back.
Yeah.
This is going to be quite a treat.
That is kind of funny, because obviously Alex and him do have a very, very long history of facing off again. I'd say Alex probably got the better of Ocelot more often than not, but it was always very heated, I think. Those guys are very, well, okay, Ocelot is very, very passionate, and Alex, I think, is very, very passionate, but he doesn't really show it on his face so much.
Not as much. But so towers end up falling. Alex Ich doing pretty well in the trade until he takes a tower shot. And so that's going to even up the HP quite a bit here. While his team is just getting to work on the top inner tower as well. They have a pretty good lead in the pushing war when it comes down to it. But there's a giant creep wave here pushing in for Rest and Pepperonis as well. So we'll see if Rest and Pepperonis are able to answer this back. They're actually bringing Lee Sin Leona and looking like they might try to go for an early Dragon Point. No, they're just going to back away from that one. So this is going in favor of Gamers 2. They take a big lead in the early push competition here.
confused movement here from Resting Pepperonis. They don't seem to know what they want to do. They didn't know whether they were going to go for the dragon. They didn't know whether they were going to go for the inner tower push on the bottom. They didn't know whether they wanted to try and stop their opponents. So they ended up kind of doing none of those things. And Ku is kind of dying to red buff. I think he'll live, but he's probably going to have to run, I'd imagine.
This
is tense stuff.
He's better. He's better than any red monster.
I'm not convinced. I think the red buff is going to get... Okay, he's going to have to run.
So Alex Ich in the mid lane has burned down most of Ocelot's mana pool. Still an extra potion available for Ocelot, though. And Alex has already burned through all of his sustain. So they're playing it pretty patiently. The Trinket Ward over the wall is well going to reveal to Ocelot, or excuse me, to Alex Ich, that there was a Kazakhstan Thresh waiting for him. So he's been kind of modifying his playstyle for that one. Baits out the hook from Dude by going in very briefly onto Ocelot, but doesn't stick around from the auto attacks as we saw him doing earlier in the trades. So he recognizes the death sentence is probably going to catch him up.
So now we have got this lane going on here in the mid lane. Obviously farming, but this time I'd say Ocelot is showing one of his skills, which I think is a little bit underrated. His Nidalee skill at CSing is actually really, really good. He's been able to get himself quite a lot, but he's maybe put himself out.
Gonna use the Summoner Heal, gonna flash himself away as well. Alex Ich getting both Summoner spells and taking Ocelot down to sub 30 HP. The Primal Surge going to get back up to a little over 100. He's up to 200 now with the health potions burning, but Alex Ich is just dominating this matchup right now.
If you compare this to the gap when Nuke Duck was on Nidalee, actually quite a small CS lead here for Alex Ich, especially when he then when this wave hits the tower, and Ocelot will get a couple more out of this. Obviously, farming under Nidalee, under tower as Nidalee is pretty horrible. He's not going to get all of them.
And it's certainly not any fun with LeBlanc looking to apply pressure and poke you down as well. But because of the Primal Surge heals, Ocelot's back at about 60% health. He's actually has more health than Alex Ich right now, though he has burned the majority of his mana pool to make that happen. In fact, all of his mana pool now is gone.
Yeah, the Doran's Ring getting him a bit of mana sustain, but he's going to need a Chalice before he can really look to just try and sustain through the lane. For now, though, they're doing very, very well. I mean, Nidalee right now is you know, pretty close on CS. And given now that there is no Ignite, there's much less kill pressure. Even though it was an exchange of heal for Ignite, that is a good trade as far as Ocelot is concerned. And when he gets back into lane, he's going to be not far. Okay, he's actually already level 6, so he'll be able to just push and push and push. And that will kind of mitigate Alex's ability to roam.
The thing that's worth pointing out is because it's been pretty much pure 2v1 for the side of Rest and Pepperonis against JWoww's Jace, it hasn't necessarily been that situation against Nuke Duck's Yasuo. So the Yasuo, compare his farm to the Jace, and he's 20 CS up. So that's a pretty sizable advantage over here for Rest and Pepperonis. It's not enough to make up the gap in the towers, but nonetheless, I mean, they're getting just more gold from their farm. They're getting more gold from their lanes, and that's working out pretty well for them.
Yeah, Jace currently sat on 28. Is not the best creep score you've ever seen, I suspect. I wouldn't know. Maybe it is. I'm very doubtful, though. So, Ocelot actually does just dodge the chain in the mid lane there. That could have been quite bad if that had landed. He would have been silenced for quite a while. But now, because no ultimate, he's going to be able to just heal through the lane. He'll be able to build himself back up. We've heard it all before, but this is just how Nidalee functions.
Yep. Also missing the chain cuts out the biggest individual source of damage here from Alex Ich, proccing the Mimic Sigil of Silence, which was up there. But the blue buff is the battleground right now. There's a pink ward in the brush, so gamers too know they can maintain vision control, but they're just being poked down and pressured so hard. We'll see if anyone's going to end up taking it down. They just end up forcing Morden away, so he's not even going to start at the blue buff just yet.
They also killed the mini lizards. R.I.P.
Rip ads. Rip Tom and Jake. We hardly need.
Is that what they're called?
That's what I've always called them.
Did you ask them?
No, that's just what I called them. And if they don't like it, they can just die again, because that's what happens.
Wow.
Ocelot, gonna end up getting that blue buff, though.
Sociopath over here.
Rest and Pepperonis give up their siege of the blue buff, and that goes over to the Nidalee, which would have been a pretty major objective if they could have kept that away and reduce the amount of infinite mana that Ocelot was going to be able to get. But they sadly will not be able to make that happen. And Alex Ich is just going to have to win this lane the hard way.
Yeah, that is true. It will be hard at this point. LeBlanc's burst is not strong enough until she's got the DFG to really go for the 100-0. means that Ocelot will be able to sustain through as long as he doesn't get like multiple combos off on him. He might do that if he's overextended for too long, but obviously now there are 2 people in the lane, so that's going to be a little bit less of a factor. Although it's worth noting, of course, because this was a 4 versus 0 game, both of the mid laners are proportionally much stronger compared to where they would normally be against the other players, which means both of their damage is much higher because everyone else is a bit XP starved.
And actually, it's worth a nod to the 2 guys who were at the potential of getting XP starved the hardest, being NukeDuck and JWoww, who found themselves in 2v1s at different phases of the game. They're dead on in levels, realistically. They're a little bit behind as they just hit level 8, but Alex Itch just hit level 8 as well. Realistically, it's almost dead even in that regard. So we're not seeing as much of a disparity as you would typically expect in a game like this.
There's actually a disparity forming in the mid lane in the favor of Ocelot here. He is out farming a LeBlanc in the early game. And obviously LeBlanc's auto attack kind of sucks too, but that's still not normally what you expect to see. Going for the harass, but it's not going to cost too much mana, but it's not going to do enough damage to actually last.
Exactly, Ocelot's just going to heal that out. So a very passive early game here. 700 gold in favor of Gamers 2. Ocelot goes in for some farm. He might regret. First chain goes down, second chain goes down, the Summoner heal while the Ignite's still up. Going to get the Primal Surge down, and will get that Grievous Wounds debuff cleansed away by using the Summoner heal, so the Primal Surge will be just enough to keep him alive. But Alex Itch finding an opportunity and taking full advantage of it.
Yeah, Alex there was actually just a tiny bit slow on the distortion. The pounce got Ocelot out of range, and that meant he survived. If that had hit, he would have been straight up dead as a result of it. And that would have been, I think we can call it bad. Now Ocelot's going to have to struggle to sustain himself back up again. The ultimate did just come back up again. For Alex Itch, you may be able to get something done there. For now, though, still the passive laning phase. Top lane may actually be the next focus. JWoww is potentially in trouble.
JWoww gonna get kicked into the wall. There's the immediate last breath coming out from NukeDuck as well. They're gonna go for the dive in the tower, but JWoww with a huge amount of burst damage turns it back around with the 2v1. Now Morden trying to get into range, gonna flash forward here. He's gonna get knocked up by NukeDuck. Can NukeDuck get away? Uses the Summoner heal, gets the extra move speed. Morden trying to chase him down, cannot do it. But JWoww with nerves of steel turns around the 2v1.
So I totally forgot how much damage Jace built. Like, old Jace, when people actually used to play him, they used to build Muramana on him. That meant he spiked a little bit less. If you build a BF sword, which is what he has right now, his burst damage is just unbelievable. And we saw it there. I think he took like 70% off the opponent's health with like 2 skills. That was just crazy.
All right, so let's just take a second and appreciate Nidalee for what Nidalee is. 2 minutes ago, maybe 3 minutes ago, she was down at 120 health. Taken down to almost nothing, and here we are, Ocelot back up to full health, half mana, and Alex Itch has to run away as he gets chunked down about 10% health and has to leave his lane and lose pressure on his tower.
I'm appreciating her for what she is. Bull.
Yeah. Blue buff Nidalee is a little ridiculous, but big props to Ocelot because he's the one who's making that happen. He's the one who's been keeping up in farm with just really good mechanics, last hitting under the tower. He's the one who's landing the javelins and denying Alex those all-in opportunities that he wants so desperately.
So, okay, right now, Gamers 2 forming up once again in this mid lane. Gonna be able to hold that tower. Feel like the next play has to be Dragon. It's getting to a point where people can much more safely do it than in the early game. But it feels like right now, Rest and Pepperonis are a little bit scared to go for it for fear of getting into a siege situation against Nidalee. We do have a pause coming in, guys, so don't know exactly what the cause is. Apparently, actually, it's a bug splat issue.
Apparently someone's game's going to crash out. We'll see who disconnects from the game momentarily. It's JWoww.
JWoww's not used to having Jace in the game either.
JWoww hit Ko so hard that his connection, his game is just like, no, screw this. And just took him out of the game. You need a timeout, sir. You need a timeout.
You need to work out your aggression issues on other people.
Pretty impressive, really. If,
But,
all right, so let's take stock here. Let's take stock. Let's look around and see items, advantages, anything like that. There's a CS lead for Freeze, but because of the timing of the base, Yuki has the Bloodthirster done. So he's going to be a little bit stronger in the straight-up 1v1. Static Shiv done here for NukeDuck, so he's got the first major item in the Yasuo core that he really needs in order to start bringing the big pain.
Yeah, both these teams are going to be very happy to just spend the time farming. They're both strong late games. They scale in different ways, the Rest in Pepperoni's team will have hard engaged team fights and picks potential, and Gamers 2 will have potentially picks, but also a huge amount of poke and siege. And that both of these things will scale up harder and harder and harder and harder the more they get to farm up. Right now, though, of course, they're just not really doing too much. Ocelot is, he just threw out a spear, didn't really actually get anything done. But if complete ward control is, gained over the dragon area for Rest in Pepperonis, then they're not going to have to worry about the Nidalee spears nearly so much, and they may be able to create a pick for themselves. Right now, there is a ward actually in the pit, which may make life a little difficult.
So Freeze is going to use the smoke bomb just to try to buy himself a little bit of space to clear out the pink ward, and it's not going to end up working. Ocelot tags him one more time with that javelin, and that one's not going to connect with Mithy. So the dragon being up, these early game dragons are always very scary against a champion like Nidalee. He's going to get pinched off here by Mithy and Nuke Duck, but just lands a huge javelin one more time, and that's going to be Morden trying to go all in. Morden going to get locked up by the solar flare, and Ko's going to be the one to pick the kill up there, as they felt they had the opportunity, but turns out Leona is pretty darn tanky even in the early game.
Yeah, and that's a nice little bait there. Ocelot is low on mana, otherwise I suspect Gamers 2 might actually try and still go for the dragon here, because they did get a bit more damage down on their opponents and they'd have the sustain, but lacking the mana on Nidalee obviously means her sustain is significantly lower than it would be otherwise, so they've just gone back to farming. They'll take the loss of that one player there. And though, it's not the end of the world. No objectives went down. It's just minorly close to goal.
Realistically, the biggest consequence of that is that there weren't enough members of Rest and Pepperonis around to try to take away the blue buff. Like, even though it was Morden who goes down, the fact that they're able to get the blue buff onto Nidalee again with no contest is a huge deal right now for Gamers 2. Also, we saw the impact that he had in Game 1 with the Nidalee. We saw what he was able to do with blue buff even earlier in this game, where he was getting pressured, he was getting starved out by the LeBlanc, he was having a tough time keeping himself in the lane, but then that extra mana regeneration and cooldown reduction brought him right back in it, and in fact gave him lane control.
And now it looks like we may be seeing a fight in the top lane. Ko and Morden tapping hands.
Beautiful Zenith Blade going over the wall. Mithy coming back in. Morden going to use the Void Assault. Going to get lots of move speed from this one. Can Ko force it? No, he can't. Morden jukes out the Sonic Wave and gets himself away.
A little bit dodgy there, and this, if it drags on, will get ugly for them. So they're going to disengage here. Rest of Pepperonis, they daren't stick around for fear of Nidalee spears. However, Freeze in the meantime has been opportunistic. He's going to take this tower. Yes, he is going to take it. There we go. And that does mean they end up winning out, even though they got nothing done really in the top lane.
Yeah, just a great vision there from Freeze, recognizing that he had the chance to pick that tower up. There's no one there. Alex Hitch walks in the lane and immediately takes a jab and loses 50% of his health. Ocelot is scary, even with just the Athenes.
It's not fun to lane against the Nidalee like that. In that situation, it's just like, I put a step wrong. Well, I guess I'm just going to lose that much health now. So, taking stock again, top lane right now, full Bloodthirster finished on JWoww. He's actually a little bit behind on farm, but I gotta say, Nuke Duck is going to have to be very careful. If he takes, a Shock Blast, that means that's basically puts him into death range. Dude, though, is actually going to live for now. Solar Flare didn't get the stun.
Yeah, he had to flash over the stun from the Solar Flare.
Wow,
Yuki comes in from the side onto Freeze. Steps away from the Zenith Blade, and that's going to allow him to continue chasing in onto this one. Burns the Culling as well, just getting as much damage as he can onto this AD carry and support combination as they want to pressure them out for the Dragon. Ko going to jump himself over the wall. He's going to stick around on this one, use the fake recall, and is maybe real recalling? No, looks like another fake recall. He's going to try to get a little bit of HP back off these double goals before he shows back up. However, looks like Gamers 2 more interested in just starting that stuff as quickly as they can. JWoww comes in, Shock Blast lands onto Alex, has to juke away from the Javelin, but again, Rest in Pepperoni is getting poked down by this composition, and the objective looks to go over to Gamers 2, and indeed it does.
Yeah, that's true. They were able to get the objective as a result of Yuki there going so aggressive, but not being punished for it. And he was able to get half health off of Graves and Leona without taking any in return, meaning that they had to recall, meaning that there was then a dragon free to take. And that, of course, also meant that Gamers 2 had a little bit of an opportunity to poke down in the mid lane. So further advantages being taken, and you can't afford to fall too far behind this comp. Gamers 2's poke is just so unpleasant to deal with. Jace's right now is probably doing as much damage as Nidalee, and we've seen how much damage Nidalee is doing already. That's really, really scary.
And Jace can do it in an AoE. If he gets 2 or 3 people with that acceleration gate shock blast combo, you don't even need the Nidalee Javelin to land. Plus, look at they have a lot of teams like pairing up when you have these hard pokes with Thresh, because if Thresh lands a death sentence, he doesn't have to go in. He just sets up the really free, massive damage. It could be a Nidalee Javelin, it could be Nidalee Javelin plus culling, it could be Nidalee Javelin plus shock blast plus culling, and that'll probably kill anybody on the lineup of Rest and Pepperonis right now.
Ooh,
Alex down to, what is that, 1/5 of his HP maybe off that Javelin? We're just kind of measuring off of the bars on the side, but it's just unreal poke Ocelot's able to bring to bear.
It's just way too much to deal with, which means you can't allow yourself to be forced into these sieging situations. It's something I've said quite a number of times, I feel, over the course of this series, but it holds as true now as ever it has. You cannot let yourself get forced into a siege situation.
Nuke Duck, be careful. JWoww's going to give the game away. He's going to reveal that they're waiting in that brush for him. He's going to try to bait Nuke Duck in. Nuke Duck goes for this one. He's going to find a very, very unpleasant grasshopper surprise in the form of Morden. Morden trying to chase this one back down. Knockup goes on to JWoww, and Nuke Duck, yeah, he's just going to leave this one. He knows what's going on here.
Morden regretting that he didn't go the quick way around. He didn't actually just go straight from the try up towards Nuke Duck, because he juked back around and was able to rotate, if you will, back up there. Yeah,
massive damage on the Co.
It's very hurty, is how I feel I can most eloquently describe what is happening when they get poked. However, if you can finish this off, not gonna happen.
Big burst, there's a solar flare there as well, but the heal goes down on Ocelot. Last breath coming back in. They do take down the Nidalee. Now Mithy gets punted in under the tower. He's not going to take tower aggro, creeps in there, and he doesn't attack anyone. JWoww getting chased down. Co going to grab that kill up, move himself away from the tower. On this one, Morden gets locked up by the Ethereal Change. Void Assault going down. Can he get himself away from this one? Nuke Duck looking to blink himself through the wall, does successfully do so, gets onto Morden and picks that kill up despite the flash coming down from Kha'Zix. So it's 3 for none in favor of Rest and Pepperonis, and they take the top tower.
And they may be able to take the next one as well. They're going to keep pushing this. Regardless, though, Yuki is stuck in this bottom lane area, and I got to question his priorities, trying to check for the red buff right now, when potentially they could be trying to for this bottom lane push or this bottom lane kill. They certainly can't respond to the top lane right now. They wouldn't be able to get there in time. But that is the difference between this game and last game in terms of dealing with the Nidalee. Because of the Yasuo as compared to the Lulu pick, there is so much more damage and so much more burst to lock down the Nidalee. Obviously, there's also less healing to contend with as a result of the Soraka ban, but still, scary.
That had to be satisfying for Alex Ich to be the one to make that catch and to put all of those nukes down on Ocelot. He's going to go back and finish up a Deathfire Grasp pretty quickly here. And once he has it, he's going to be able to 100-0 pretty much anyone, even the Nidalee. He got really, really close to the Athene's Unholy Grail, kept Ocelot alive long enough to get those heals down onto himself. But the next time around, there's the DFG done, it's not going to be as easy. Or it's going to be a lot easier, rather, for Alex Ich. Dude. Oh, going to get the play on a Co.
Oh.
We did not get the death sentence, but there's Ocelot. Co.
Oh.
Kicks him away. Puts the pink one down over the wall, jumps over it. Ocelot going to go ahead and flash.
The game is
knows
on.
he's done for. Pound's going to be good to pick that kill up.
That was a disappointing game. Anyway, doesn't matter. Freeze heading down to the bot lane, pushing that out. The kill, obviously, nice little pickup. And I gotta say, Co getting caught out again here. Something we've been seeing a little bit too much from him this series. This is not the standard that I have usually expected to see from him. He's usually been, not necessarily the best about positioning, because he allows his mechanics to kind of make up for it, but usually a little bit better than this.
So interestingly enough, Yasuo here has gone for, and this is becoming a more common adaptation here. He picks up the Blade of the Ruin King right after getting the Static Shiv. Just to get more auto attacks to keep himself in the fight longer, gives him a little bit more kiting potential, or avoiding getting kited out as well. So a lot of Yasuos are going for this build rather. Oh, dude. Oh, he's got the ward there. Okay, he can see Alex Ich. Morden now going to try to jump in. He's going to try to chase down Alex Ich, uses the Void Assault. The wall goes over the wall, does Mithy. Ocelot bursted down, and Alex Ich going to pick that kill up very quickly. Sonic Wave lands onto Yuki. He's going to follow that one up. There is still a Yasuo ultimate, so he gets the kick onto Dude, but does not knock up Yuki. Nuke Duck not going to try to force the issue on that one. So Alex Ich, once again, picks up the kill on Ocelot.
Being the bait there as well, pulled them in. They tried to go for the kill, And this is keeping Gomez 2 from grouping up. This is keeping them split apart. And that means that they get the fights they want. The other thing, of course, is that Leona's hard engage there is very, very strong in these situations. It means you can just solar flare from God knows what range it is, but it's massively huge. And that enables you to lock down key targets. Jace, Nidalee is much harder to lock down with solar flare, but Jace is super vulnerable to it.
Absolutely. The Bloodthirster and the Last Whisper now done for JWoww. And basically the one thing that Rest and Pepperonis need to avoid is ever getting into a full 5-on-5 siege situation. If they're ever in a situation where both Nidalee and Jace are able to just use their poke freely, some of it's going to land, right? You can't dodge all of that. It's just not possible. And once any of it does land, that combined with the heals from the Nidalee is going to give a big advantage over to Gamers 2. But they've been pretty successful at avoiding that so far. They have a 2,000 gold lead here as they take down the Dragon, but their mid-inner tower being threatened.
Yeah, this is a siege situation. Will they be able to get an engage, and do they actually want to? You have to be very, very careful about what engages you choose, because we saw before, the kite is strong. If you get into a very long, sustained fight, Nidalee's damage actually starts to add up, because she's able to output it all the time with her spears, and the heals also make up for quite a bit. So in a bursty team fight, Nidalee is practically worthless. In anything else, she's really, really good. So now Ocelot may have to watch himself, but he will be okay here. Mithy does have his mobility boots, but he's not going to be able to just straight up solar flare Nidalee unless her pounce is already down.
Or if she just switched over to human form or something like that. There are a couple windows where you can find Nidalee without her mobility, but it's pretty tough to do. Another thing we didn't talk about as much is the amount of AoE burst damage that's capable, or that Rest and Pepperonis are capable of bringing. Oh, Alex is engaging so hard onto Ocelot, using the flash to get in a range for the second distortion, but cannot land the chains, and Ocelot will just barely survive.
But it was a good play to make. That if they had executed that correctly, it would have been a kill, and it was actually surprisingly low risk, just because of the amount of distance he was covering with the WR combo there. It's a huge amount of distance to cover, and that means it's very, very difficult to respond when he does it. It's actually a bit like Zed currently with his Death Mark shadow that he can swap back to. You see him disappear because he realizes his all-in goes south, and he's just like, well, it doesn't matter, he's too far away to catch.
Solar Flare goes down, the box is there for the disengage, and it's going to be good to get them away from that one. Morden going to go back to Ocelot's repair shop, going to put that Mecha Kha'Zix back up to snuff, and he's going to look to move back out onto the map.
How does healing work? I don't know. It's magic. It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter what you're made out of. Nidalee can make you better. She doesn't make things, she just makes them better.
Wait, how does that work? I guess she gives them attack speed, so they are actually better.
Beautiful flash knockup! Nuke Duck setting it up for himself, goes in with the last breath. The first kill can end up going over to Mithy. But just the Yasuo, just the bravery, flashing into range to get a triple knockup. 3-man last breath. And once again, Ocelot goes down. That's his third death of the game.
That engage, though, it's so difficult to deal with that now. They take down the tower as well. I imagine this won't be too difficult for them. They don't have the wind wall, but yeah, there's no real, it's not, Dude isn't going to throw out a death sentence for, just for his own health or whatever. Morden may be able to catch up here, but I'm not sure he actually wants Mithy. This is kind of a bait, and he's not going to fall for it.
Gamers 2 looking to get as much just farm as they can, looking to continue putting the Nidalee ahead, but Ocelot's been set significantly further behind this game than we ever saw in game number 1. This has not been their game, and they didn't even rely on the Yasuo versus Nidalee. They just let Alex Ich kind of take control, and his LeBlanc has been amazing. He's got the Deathfire Grasp. He has the Void Staff now as well. So again, any target that comes in front of him, he can burst down pretty much 100 to 0 if he gets the full combo with the DFG up front.
It's actually been kind of fun to watch the Nidalee priority in chips and bangs, in picks and bans, has been increasing as this entire series has gone by, and it's eventually reached a point now where it's so high priority the Gamers 2 were almost guaranteed to pick it, but that enabled Rest and Pepperonis to just say, right, we're going to build our composition to counter this playstyle, and they have pretty successfully done so far. It's obviously not a super reliable victory, because if they ever get forced into the siege situation, they will be in trouble, but right now it's looking like they're doing a good job keeping their enemies on the run. They are going to have some problems themselves, though, because not only is Gamers 2 very good at sieging, they're also very good at counter-sieging, and that was a next-level way that JWoww just got off that wall. Did you see that?
Yeah. Okay, I want to get closer to the farm, so I'm just going to punt this jungle monster over there, and then I'm going to jump to it. And that's going to get me to the farm faster while I take this down. Pretty OP.
That was cute. Like, I've not seen anything quite that way, but obviously I haven't seen Jace in a while. Now, Games 2 formed up in the mid lane, but they're sat on a ward. Dragon comes up in 1 minute 20, but now might be a time to start fighting over the vision control. They can do a decent job, and they can always look to try and get a pick as well, thanks to the fact they have Thresh on their team, but they may be opening themselves up to the counter push here. So it seems like Rest and Pepperonis are going to threaten the mid lane.
I also really like that Gamers 2 at this point put the blue buff onto JWoww's Jace instead of giving it over to Ocelot, because Ocelot, you know, he's got the Things Unholy Grail, he has the blue elixir, he's basically got an additional 30% cooldown reduction that JWoww won't have available to him, and the Athenes is giving him a lot of mana regeneration anyway. So this is adding on to their aggregate poke by quite a bit. The double flank coming out here from Rest and Pepperonis, it looks like.
Risky.
Yeah, Alex Itch is going to have to turn and run away from this one. He's got a lot of mobility. Flash comes out. Solar Flare goes on to Ocelot. Gets the slow. They use the DFG. Can they get the burst damage? Not quite. Alex Itch has to blink himself back out. Ko now going to be the target of the culling. He's going to take a little bit of damage from that, but not too much. And Rest and Pepperonis feel like they've got the inside track on the mid lane inhibitor tower.
Yeah, they've split them apart, but they're also splitting themselves apart right now. Ko is a little bit too far off from the rest of his team, and they've got to be careful. Remember, sustained fights, bad. They do have burst. Alex Itch's ult did just come back up. Got it. He wants it. No Deathfire Grasp, but he's still got enough damage to easily take down a squishy with Ignite.
Nice use of the wind wall there. Not only does it prevent the damage, but it prevents the vision as well, so they can't necessarily know how many people were in that brush. Death Sentence not going to land down onto Nuke Duck, and Dude will not be able to set that kill up for his team. However, they seem to have position control of the Dragon. Shock Blast goes out, lands onto Ko. Looks like they're going to try to go for some sort of steal here. Sonic Wave lands. They're going to wait it out, not using any of the burst damage. Loses the Sonic Wave, and that's going to be the Dragon going over to the side of Gamers 2. The poke all getting burned into the wind wall. So making sure that Nuke Duck gets as much value out of that as possible. But Gamers 2, despite losing the tower in the bottom lane, do pick themselves up a Dragon.
And that's why it's scary if Gamers 2 get their control that they need. But now there's an opportunity. Big wave in the top lane. Wave actually forming the other way in the bottom lane, but potentially they could push since the wave is up there. Looks like they're just going to start threatening the Baron here. They could start this, but the contest would be very, very dangerous from Gamers 2. Obviously, yes, there are two people quite a long way away, but Ko is low.
Beautifully played there by Alex.
Okay, right. Yep, that works. That works fine. Well done.
There was no vision control in the area. They're still trying to take down the Baron. The culling goes down. Going to get a lot of damage down. Morden jumps back in. He makes the steal. Morden steals the Baron away from Rest and Pepperonis despite giving up his own life.
That's always the risk there, but you've got to say, why was it Lee Sin that ended up losing the Baron? They had the control over the pit, and Lee Sin has the hardest fight with his smite. Morden was one level higher maybe, so maybe that was the issue, but I can understand going for the play. They created the pick, but they didn't create the pick onto the enemy jungler, and there is always, it's like a 50-50 chance. Do you really want to take such a big risk when you're making that play, or wouldn't you rather just kind of try and, get the pick and then leave?
The risk wasn't realistically as high as it would have seemed either, because they had such amazing vision control. Dude throwing the lantern in was the first clue that Gamers 2 got about that play, and that was the situation. That was what created the pick on Ocelot. He had no idea where Alex was, and Alex just has so much burst and mobility. He was able to chase down Ocelot and pick that kill up very, very quickly. But even with that, you're right. Not being able to secure the Baron is very unfortunate here for the side of Rest and Pepperonis, and it's going to stall out a lot of the momentum they could have had after putting Ocelot back on the fountain for the 4th time this game.
Obviously, there are two members without the buff itself as a result of Nidalee going down, and Morden's brave sacrifice for his men. It does seem like right now, though, Freeze is... Yeah, okay, he's gonna be careful. Thought he was walking towards Wraiths. Would have been a bad place to go at that time. Ko should be fine. He's too mobile. He's decent. He's okay. It's no worries. He's fine.
All right. I'm still coming back. Get slowed up. He's okay.
It's all right. It's all fine. Just wait until that one engage where suddenly someone takes the critical mass of damage and then they force them in. But right now, game is 2. Look where they're positioned. They've got 5 men in the area, and they've also got a slow push wave in top and bot. This is ideal sieging territory. That means Rest and Pepperonis need to make an engage happen right now, or potentially force them so far back that they can go and clear the waves. But Gamers 2 should be very content to just siege this, but they need to be careful. They need to be so careful with the combo of LeBlanc and with the Leona engage and with the Yasuo, all these various problems. But all they need to do is wait. Slow push waves. Just watch.
It's all about protecting their flanks. That's a big part of it. Because if Ko comes in from the side and kicks Yuki, that's going to be the last breath from Yasuo, and he's going to be right on top of the carry instantly. If LeBlanc comes in from the flank and is able to pick up either Ocelot or Yuki, bring all that burst damage, it's going to be a huge problem. They're going to try to use that on the JWoww's Jace. Alex Itch sticking around for a long time. Collateral damage goes in, and Alex Itch going to be one to pick the kill up. Solar Flare goes in over the wall. Ko trying to continue this one down. Gets in onto Ocelot. Going to end up kicking Yuki away as the flash comes down from Ocelot. Dude now getting caught out. He's going to end up juking away from the Q while standing still. Very impressively done, but not going to matter. He goes down. Freeze picks up a kill there. And all the damage, that's just what we were talking about. Just like that, Rest and Pepperoni is able to make some big picks happen.
Yeah, and for their sake, thank God it happened then, because look at those waves in the top and the bot. They're going to be able to clear those. If they had been trapped in the mid lane, taking spears, taking shot glass, losing their tower potentially, they would have had to have at least sacrificed the inner tower and potentially more to deal with those waves. So they got the engage, and that's what that means they're A-okay with that situation. And obviously they'll be able to go and clean up that farm, and they'll be very happy to do so. So it's quite a lot of golden experience between it.
And look at the contribution from Alex Itch's game. 5-0-3, 80% kill participation on his LeBlanc. He has been able to make the plays happen for his side. And just right there, JWoww, he thought he was perfectly safe. He had no idea that Alex Itch was hanging out in the wolf pit. It just blinked over the wall, brought the burst damage, combined that with the collateral damage from Freeze, and they had just enough. Morden now maybe in a bit of trouble. Nuke Duck gonna go in with the last whisper, or last breath rather. He does have a last whisper as well. Does he? No. Total lie. Morden just gonna jump over the wall. He's gonna be fine.
Yeah, you don't tend to see Last Whisper on Yasuo because he gets bonus armor pen from his ult. But you definitely do see it on high armor opponents, because obviously that way you have it all the time without being dependent on your ult to get it. And obviously your ult is dependent on knockups, and you don't necessarily always land your knockups. Alex takes off about 60% of Yuki's health with his second dash there, so pretty hard damage.
I feel like he was testing what he was capable of. Like, okay, exactly how low can I get Yuki right now? He had to know that Yuki's going to lifesteal it all back up, and he has Ocelot standing right beside him, so he's just going to be able to heal it back up as well. But now he knows, okay, just the Mimic Distortion alone is about half of Yuki's health.
Yeah, and with the DFG as well, and the chains and the basic sigil, that's a lot of damage, and then he blinks back to his normal ghost. JWoww in trouble.
Last breath going in onto JWoww. JWoww going to have a lot of troubles with this one. One last auto attack. Not going to matter. Flash is away from that one. JWoww just barely keeping himself alive, and now Nuke Duck in a bit of trouble. Lantern going back out. Morden trying to chase this back down. Alex shows up. He's going to try to finish the job, but the Death Sentence goes down to the point of distortion. He's going to be the one to pick that kill up as well. Nuke Duck is able to chase down Ocelot and pick that one up. Now he's just trying to stay as far away from the enemy team as he can for as long as possible while buying time for his team to push down the top lane. He will go down. Yuki picks that kill up, but just like that, the rest of Pepperonis moving in onto the top inhibitor tower. The top inhibitor tower falls down. They move on to the inhibitor. Can they claim this before anyone from the side of Gamers 2 can come back to defend? Yes, they can. Now they just have to get back out. Morden trying to chase, will not commit. Rest and Pepperonis lose 2, pick up 1, and grab the top inhibitor.
Absolutely worth it, of course. So that's a really, really good trade for them. They should be able to get the dragon now as well. Doesn't look like anyone's going to be in position to respond, although Freeze isn't actually joining up with the team, so they may not be actually planning on doing that. Gamers 2 there, though, a little bit awkward, basically. They got into a situation where they couldn't pin down Yasuo. He was too fast because there was too many minions around the place. And he was able to dance a very merry dance around them. And obviously, in the meantime, the push came in. So, Baron in 30 seconds. Wouldn't be surprised to see it not actually be forced, though, here by Rest and Pepperonis. They may well be better served by just trying to siege the bottom tower first. That way they can build up waves in the top and the mid, and then they could maybe look to rotate towards the Baron afterwards.
Definitely, yeah, very high likelihood of that. whenever you have 2 inhibitors down, it's very difficult for the enemy team to deal with that many super minions. But if you get all 3 down, it's almost impossible just to deal with the raw amount of HP coming in. And once those super minions start stacking up their buffs on one another, it's pretty tough to push back out. Morden in a brush, gonna find Alex Ich. Gonna try to get himself away with this one, and that's Kha'Zix's ultimate down.
Yep. The LeBlanc ultimate isn't going to be down for much longer. He did use his DFG though. That is going to be down for quite a lot longer since it's not affected by the massive amount of cooldown reduction Alex has. In fact, he must be at 40% right now. Yes, he is in fact indeed with his 40% from his blue DFG and Athenes, and probably more than that with his runes as well. Mastery, sorry. But now comes the Baron. This is a bit risky. They're mostly there. They haven't waited for the wind waves to force them off.
Yeah, they're trying to actually, it's going the other way around. Dude, again, has to flash away from the solar flare. They're trying to build waves by pulling members of Gamers 2 over towards the Baron. And it's working pretty well for them so far. They just have to avoid getting initiated on at low health. They're keeping the Baron down relatively low. It's below half, closer to a third now. And Mythi's just going all alone over to the other side. Members of Gamers 2 just backing away. They're going to rely on Morden to get the steal down one more time, but no one else really going to commit to this one. Ocelot here to contribute to the effort as well. One Nexus tower going to fall down because of all the super creeps.
Breeze is dying.
Now they're just chasing back up onto this one. Morden doesn't have the Void Assault this time around. He's going to get locked up. Blinks into the Baron pit, going to get chased down. He will fall. Buckshot aggroes the Baron. Now Ocelot going to get run down by Nuke Duck. This is going to just about do it here for Rest and Pepperonis as they move in. They're going to take down this Baron. And can they close the game out afterwards? They've already taken down 2 members of the opposing side. 1 Nexus tower is down, but the middle inhibitor has respawned.
40-second death timers on Gamers 2 here. They're going to have to contend with a fight they can't necessarily win. And now Mythi is going to have to run. Yuki actually in trouble here.
Flashes forward. Ko going to try to chase this one back down. Yuki going to try to go for the 1v1, but Freeze is going to show up as well. One more auto attack. Smoke bomb. I think the smoke bomb got it. Maybe the auto attack. Couldn't really tell. Death announcement came in from elsewhere on the map as Alex Ich. Nuke's down viewed. Nuke Duck going to take away this inhibitor. Down goes the inhibitor. 2 inhibs
Good luck,
down.
JWoww.
Good luck, JWoww. He's got to carry the whole team right now. As Nuke Duck's actually just going to ignore him. Uses the wind wall to block out the shock blast, and that's going to be it. The GGs are coming out. The Gamers 2 just going to concede this one over. The Nexus tower does fall. The rest of Pepperonis collapse onto the Nexus. And Rest and Pepperoni is going to end up picking up the win in this tournament eventually once they're done killing everyone. JWoww goes down, and that's going to do it. Rest and Pepperonis take first place in the Solomid Invitational's 2014 tournament number 1.
Very, very well played at the end there. My biggest criticism for Rest and Pepperonis in the earlier games in this series was they didn't seem to have quite as cohesive map movements as you'd like. They weren't terrible, but they weren't like super on point, like at like LCS team kind of level. But the way they handled that last Baron was really, really cool. The way they had they basically encircled, forced Gamers 2 to back with some of their players to stop the waves pushing in, and yet at the same time they were able to catch people out and engineer getting the Baron with some slightly razor edge health tanking from Freeze, who very, very nearly died to it, but still very, very well played by them overall there, and well-deserved winners of the entire tournament.
All right, so that's going to be